we're going to talk about several assertions, and all of these assertions are false. So first of all, students often think that if there's no copyright notice, something can be copied freely. But as we noted above, the copyright notice is not required for copyright protection. It confers some benefits to the owner, but it's not required. You can't assume something is available to be copied just because there's no copyright notice. I often hear students say, if the use seems fair to me, it's fair use. And as you know from the test we just stepped through, fair use is a legal term and it has a series of legal elements that you have to consider. Fair use is not just a common sense evaluation of whether something was fair or not. Students also sometimes will believe that non-commercial use is always fair. So they'll think that use for education or for nonprofit purposes is always going to be fair. But as we saw above, that's only one of the factors. And again, a common misconception is that if you acknowledge the source of a work, that will make your use of the work fair use. And as I noted above a couple times, that's not the case. It's not sufficient to acknowledge the source. And the last misconception I wanted to mention is that many folks believe that it's okay to quote up to 300 or some other number, 100 or 150 words of a work, and it would still be fair use. But as I mentioned above, if you have an example of a short poem like a haiku, which would only be 17 syllables long, you can't really quote very much of that before you've quoted the whole thing. And we know from the test that quoting the whole thing is more problematic than quoting just a small part. So the 300 word rule, if you want to call it that, is no rule at all. So I'd like you to stop the video here and consider each of the following cases. Say whether you think it's a fair use and why. And if you don't believe you have enough information, say what additional information you would need. There's a forum post assignment on Moodle where you should share your answers, and you'll also find a couple links there to resources that might help you analyze the question. So stop the video now, consider your answers, make some notes, and then start when you're ready. Start again when you're ready. All right, I'd like to consider one final issue in this part of the video, and that is the question of copyright and plagiarism. People often get the two confused. So first of all, let's think about what plagiarism is. If you look at the Technical Communication Today text that we use in the class, on page 113, Richard Johnson Sheehan defines plagiarism as the use of someone else's text or ideas as your own without giving credit. He goes on to say then that one type of copyright infringement is plagiarism. So my question to you is whether Johnson Sheehan is right. And the answer, as I think you know by now, is no. Fair use does not require attribution to the author. So not citing the author does not automatically make something copyright infringement, as long as you meet the fair use test. And plagiarism includes taking ideas without crediting them, whether you quote someone else's words or not. But ideas are not protected by copyright. If you copy too much of someone else's work, you can violate fair use, even if you give attribution. Thus, there's some plagiarism that is not copyright infringement, and some copyright infringement is not plagiarism. Okay, well, that's it for the topic of copyright. If you have copyright questions, please post them to the forum on Moodle that's been set up for that purpose. Next, we'll treat trademarks in part 3. Thanks.